The BYU men's basketball team gets back into the win column, and they do it in somewhat of a controversy. Okay, not that big of a controversy, but we're talking about all the same on POSTCAST.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day, and then welcome on into a special edition of the podcast. We like to call them postcasts here, as BYU men's basketball gets back into the win column in Big 12 play with a very nice 84-72 victory over the Texas Longhorns at the Marriott Center. A high noon tip on ESPN2, and it was a really raucous atmosphere from what I could see. Now, let me acknowledge right up front, I was not at the Marriott Center this afternoon. I was actually at the Southtown Exposition Center in Sandy, Utah. I guess it's now known as the Mountain America Expo Center, but I was there for my daughter's cheer competition. But amid the lulls of how many different teams were competing, I was able to catch most of the game. And I thought it was a very good atmosphere, great fan support, and BYU gets a much-needed victory to get back into the win column, brings their Big 12 record back to 3-4 after dropping two straight to drop to 2-4 in Big 12 play. I really liked how BYU took it to Texas. There was none of this, we're going to rely on the outside shot. BYU very much was content to say, you know what, if you're going to try and drive us off the three-point line, we'll go right to the hole and score it on you. And I was really impressed with BYU's ability to attack the rim. In fact, I saw this immediately after the game. Gregor Bell tweeted out, BYU on their two-point attempts. We're talking mid-range and also layups, dunks, that type of stuff inside the three-point line. BYU shot north of 75% on those shots. That is scorching hot. For the game, BYU was red hot, 64% from the field, 41.2% from three. They only attempted 17, so they got to half of what their stated goal is, to hoist up 35 threes. And I know that Rodney Terry, the Texas coach in the postgame, said that he felt like they did a good job neutralizing BYU's three-point shooting. Well, yeah, they held BYU to half of the three-point attempts they typically like to take, but when you make 41.2% of those, and then, by the way, you go 32 of 50 from the field overall, very impressed with what I saw from BYU. Noah Waterman continues to really have a nice run here. He had 17 points in this game. Same with Jaxson Robinson. They moved Jaxson Robinson back into the starting lineup, and he responded very positively in this game. It was good to see him have a nice run here. He was not content just to play from outside. He only attempted 2 3-pointers. He was 8 of 11 from the field. Similar to Noah Waterman, he was 3 of 6 from three, but also ended up 7 of 11 from the field as well. So overall, this was a very cohesive win for BYU. Very impressed with how they handled things. There was obviously moments where BYU would turn the ball over. They ended up, with 16 turnovers in this game. And that's the only reason this game was as close as it was. And it was still a 12-point margin of victory for BYU. Dylan Disu, I don't know how you pronounce his name correctly, ended up with 19 points to pace Texas in this game. But I thought BYU, for the most part, neutralized his advantage on the interior. And the one other guy I want to give a massive shout out, actually two of them. The big men for BYU, in particular, Khalifa, who ended up with 8 assists in this game, had a very paltry output offensively in terms of points, just 2 points on 1 of 5 shooting. He was 0 of 3 from 3, but those 8 assists, every single one of them seemed to just be one of those dazzling plays, and ends up with 8 assists to 2 turnovers. He continues to just absolutely rock it. And then also, big ups to Foussenyi Traore. Foos is getting back to full health, or at least as close as it appears he's going to get this season. He's been dealing with that hamstring. It's been a tricky deal for him to navigate that, but he was at his best. I think he probably had his finest performance since early on in the season today against Texas, and really liked what I saw from him. When Foos is able to kind of rumble in the lane and do his thing, he's got his touch on his jumper, as well as his touch around the rim with his hook shots and the like. That is a very nice weapon to add to an already potent BYU offense. I really was impressed with what he put up, and BYU ends up carving up Texas for 84 points in this game. It was a comprehensive victory. There is no if, and, or but about this. There was no situation where you felt like this game might get out of hand in the second half. BYU built as big as a 17-point lead. It got down to like 9 points, and they went to a timeout after Texas got to that. I think it was 9 points, if I recall correctly. So this is the closest they've been in a hot minute. Well, what did BYU proceed to do? I think that might have been the final media timeout. They come out, and then they had that possession. They got 2 big offensive rebounds and essentially carved a minute 30 off of the clock by working it. The IQ, just the smarts that BYU had in this game really impressed me. And it was nice to see BYU not let the loss to Houston as well as Texas Tech linger over into this one. They just kind of went out and did their thing and took care of their business. I really liked what I saw from BYU, and they will now get a deserved break as they will have a midweek break. They'll have a bye midweek. They will not play Tuesday or Wednesday this week, and they'll make the long trip, it is the longest trip of their Big 12 slate if they will make the cross-country trip to Morgantown, West Virginia to take on the West Virginia Mountaineers. And really liked what I saw from the Cougars. And the other thing about it is, I guess, Big 12-wise, if you look at the scores as of recording of this podcast, this is there's still some games going on. But all the games so far leading up to BYU's game were like one-possession games. And BYU just absolutely rumbled past Texas. So really nice win for the Cougars. Now gets them back into the win column. Like I said, gets them to 3-4. If they go to West Virginia next week and win that game, they're sitting back at 500 as we near the midway point of Big 12 play. Really like what I saw from them. We'll let you guys have your say on the podcast. I've been meaning to get back to more of this with these postcasts. So we'll get to some comments as well as some other thoughts on BYU and this win over Texas. We'll do that in just a moment right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Utah Community Credit Union. Now, you've heard me talk about Utah Community Credit Union for quite a while now. The best part about Utah Community Credit Union is that the Learn and Earn feature, part of the UCCU mobile banking app that is paying your entire family to learn about money. Now, I've been a member of UCCU in the interest of full disclosure since I was 8 years old, but this Learn and Earn feature is really awesome, my friends. We all want to be smarter when it comes to our money, and that's where Learn and Earn comes in. It breaks down financial topics into fun, bite-sized educational games featuring quizzes and trivia mainly. And the best part is every time a family member completes a topic, you earn points that accrue and be redeemed for gift cards to stores like Amazon, Apple, Sephora, Walmart, Nike, and many more. The best part is there's age-appropriate content for every member of the family. You all can compete against one another and track your progress on leaderboards. And then once again, it's inside the UCCU mobile banking app, so you can play Learn and Earn anywhere, anytime. The more you play, the more you learn. Of course, the more you learn, the more you earn. It's as simple as that, everybody. So get on it. It's Learn and Earn, part of UCCU's award-winning Be Money Smart Youth Banking program, helping kids, teens, and parents have fun with becoming more financially literate together. It's all courtesy of your friends at UCCU. Love where you bank. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope you guys are all doing well. If you have not done so already, please consider signing up for our subtext community. Been a really fun way to support the show, having great interactions via text message with a number of you BYU fans out there. I call you guys the real OGs, the real diehards as it is for this podcast. And to the one troll who tells me I should stop giving plugs for subtext, I'm not going to stop. It's been a really fun way to interact with BYU fans, and I would hope that more of you will consider signing up. It's a 14-day free trial. Like I said, direct communication with me via text messages on your phone. So if you want to have that access, hit it up in the show notes, click the link, put in your phone number, and you're on your way. It's a great way, like I said, to interact with the show, support the show, and as well as just have fun with us here on the podcast. All right, before we go on today's show, a couple of comments from you out there in our fan base, I guess I should say, from social media and the like. Good friend Danny Drew on our subtext community says 84 points is close to the 90 points, but I believe that BYU needs to score every game to win. Now, Danny, I think, has got a good point there. You should be striving to just absolutely run away from teams. And BYU, when they're on like they were today, they're going to near that 90-point total. Now, in Big 12 play, you got teams like Houston out there that are absolutely going to lock you down defensively. And for BYU to get 68 points against Houston is actually a comparable, 80-90% performance against other teams. So Danny's got a point there. You want to have high scoring output for BYU because it's kind of their calling card. They're an offensive minded team, and when they have a chance to play as offensively minded as they were in this game in particular today, they're gonna have a good chance to win those games. Good friend Daniel Haslam on Twitter says it's a big win, showed that BYU deserves to be ranked. I agree with that. That's the other thing about this. I think there's some people out there wondering if BYU was really a top 25 caliber team. Well, the Big 12 has shown that it has got just absolutely incredible incredible basketball across the league, and BYU is showing they belong right in the thick of things. Yes, they're 3-4 in conference, but don't let that take away anything from what BYU is doing. I think anybody who watches Big 12 basketball knows how good this league is and really how dog-eat-dog the nature is of this conference. Our good friend Russell Grizz father says, definitely the best overall game of the Big 12 season. I have a hard time disagreeing with you, Russ, because I think that's absolutely the right call on that. Texas was not bad offensively. They shot 44% from the field in this game. They had a very good game offensively. 44% typically is going to get you in the thick of games, but when you outshoot them by almost 20 percentage points more, I think it's 19.7% more, speaking of BYU, well, you're going to run away from them. And like I said, the only thing that really kept Texas as close as they were in this game was the BYU's turnover issues, which continue to be a little bit of a burr in their you-know-what. They had 16 against 7 for Texas. And obviously, had BYU been able to cut down those turnovers, maybe have them, this game's probably not even that close. That's the thing about this. It was one of those games that BYU handled their business, but that's just kind of the one thing you look at and say, okay, maybe if they can cut down on that, they have a chance to do that, because Texas points off of turnovers, 17 off of those 16 turnovers for BYU. So not the best in terms of I guess what I'd say output in terms of points off turnovers, but it's still 17 points directly off BYU miscues, and that can be corrected. That continues to be a thing that BYU needs to work on. Weston at Pyro Coug says BYU shows they can make baskets from the paint. It's absolutely the right call. They did. They really were content. They're going to run us off the 3-point line. We'll go right to the rim, use our mid-range game, and Jaxson Robinson in particular looked on point from that mid-range game, and I think they'll have more NBA scouts continuing to pay attention to him because his ability to score at all three levels, as they call it. And what do you mean by all three levels? Is at the rim, in the mid-range, and also from three-point arc. Those are things that the NBA values. They want guys who can, like I said, score at all three levels, and that's a nice thing for Jaxson Robinson. He is showing that. Luke McDermott at Lucasimo says they played much more composed, moved the ball well as a team, and didn't force shots. Exactly how I want them to play the rest of the way. I agree with you on that, Luke. This is the type of basketball. BYU can play this type of basketball. Share the ball, find the good shots, and more importantly, knock down those shots. And then conversely, on the defensive end, they were doing a pretty good job with the rotations. They were doing monsters. They're doing 1-3-1 zone. They're doing man at times. I continue to like how BYU mixes things up defensively because it causes opponents to get in a little bit of a scramble drill when they see BYU come out in one defense and almost morph into another, seemingly the next possession. That is an advantage BYU is using to great effect. I like that. Now, Corso here says, Corso 4420 says they better finish 6-5 in the last 11 games or the NIT will be calling. Here's the thing, Corso. BYU probably could finish 7-11 and still make the NCAA tournament. That's how good the Big 12 is projecting to be right now. 6-5 in the last 11 will get them to 9-9, which is the goal I believe they should be striving for, 500 in conference. But we'll see how things ultimately pan out. It's one of those things that you got to watch this league. The league is absolutely just beating up on each other. We saw Iowa State, who BYU beat, by the way. We saw Iowa State beat Texas today. This league is just, it is cannibalizing itself, but in a good way, because it's going to battle test every single one of these teams, including BYU, going in to an NCAA tournament where they're going to feel like, okay, we've just gone through an absolute gauntlet, and whoever you throw up against us, we're going to be able to handle them. That's the positive of what BYU is going through right now. Now, the final thing I want to do before we go on this postcast is address the horns down debacle, I don't know, with controversy. Now, some BYU students, within their rights, I think, before the game were spotted right along the baseline near the Texas bench wearing shirts that spelled out horns down when they stood next to each other. By the first media timeout, they were asked to take those shirts off. Now, Chase Rogers, who works for the Daily Universe, there was some controversy about, did Texas request the BYU take those shirts off of those students, or was it BYU doing it? Well, Chase Rogers from the Daily Universe said that it was a BYU media personality. Now, who could that be? Is that somebody from BYU TV asking them to do that? Well, Mark Pope after the game says that a horns down is, quote, not us. Coach, here's the thing. The fact that Texas is as Charmin soft as they are about the horns down saga, and trust me, I'm going to have Texas fans all over my mentions about this, just addressing this. But the fact that Texas is as Charmin soft, and I'll say it again, Charmin soft about the horns down thing, makes it all the more likely that it's going to happen wherever they go. Rodney Terry is chastising UCF a week ago, saying that don't do that bleep. That's classless. And then he said, well, we don't jump up and down and celebrate like we won the national championship. And then the very next game against Baylor, he's jumping up and down like they won the national championship when his team won on a buzzer beater. The horns down thing is just bizarre and stupid that Texas continues to take so much offense to it. But guess what? The fact that they take the offense to it, that's why people do it more often. It is just this incredibly soft thing that Texas needs to get over. Just get over it. Move on from it. So I don't get why BYU was like, well, that's not us. Coach, it's going to happen everywhere Texas goes. By the way, you think that the Big 12 is mean about this with Texas? Imagine what SEC fan bases are going to do. And by the way, BYU students were chanting SEC at Texas after this game was ending. I actually thought the student section was well within their rights to do what they want. But you know what? If BYU administration wants them to take down those horns down shirts, so be it. But come on, Texas. Y'all are bigger than that, right? Everybody says things are bigger in Texas, but the way Texas acts about horns down, it's pretty small time, honestly. All right, that's going to do it. A big thank you to all of you for your support of the podcast. As always, we'll be back on Monday with a new full edition of the podcast, talking BYU football, basketball. We'll have a lot of coverage for you guys in the week ahead, but a big thank you as always for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Thank you to all of you who are everydayers as well. And until next time, my friends, this has been POSTCAST with Locked On Cougars.